what we see in our research and also the projects is that kids love doing science research and projects that have a direct effect on their lives or their communities. So if they see something that's been affected or they get excited about it, then they need to go after it. And I think that is something we're seeing across the board, frankly, climate change being one of them.
Welcome to Science with a Twist, a podcast for curious people who enjoy exploring how science impacts our daily lives. From technology that helps the fight against COVID-19 to solutions that help clean the water we drink, it's all thanks to science. In each episode, members of Thermo Fisher's scientific team talk to experts who are on the cutting edge of redefining how we exist. Let's get started.
Hello, and welcome back to Science with a Twist, brought to you by Thermo Fisher Scientific. I'm Meron Mathias, Vice President of Corporate Social Responsibility and Sustainability at Thermo Fisher. And today we're talking about the future of the STEM workforce. It's critical to nurture a STEM workforce that reflects the diversity of our society. And at Thermo Fisher, we know we can't achieve that vision for a future STEM workforce alone. It's why we collaborate with partners across the education ecosystem who share our commitment. One of those partners is Society for Science. This is an organization that's been dedicated to expanding scientific literacy, access to STEM education, and scientific research for more than 100 years. Late last year, we became the title sponsor of the Society's middle school competition, which is now called the Thermo Fisher Scientific Junior Innovators Challenge. The Thermo Fisher JIC is the premier STEM research competition for U.S. students aged 11 to 14. And I'm excited to share that this fall, we'll be holding our inaugural Thermo Fisher JIC Finals Week and Awards Ceremony in Washington, D.C. Today, I'm very grateful to be joined by two of the competition's top experts and advocates. Maya Ajmera, President and CEO of Society for Science and Executive Publisher of Science News, and Eleanors Sigrest, rising junior at Stanford University and 2016 top prize winner of the Society's middle school STEM competition. Plus, she will very likely be the first person on Mars. Together today, we're going to explore the broad positive impact of STEM learning experiences, the value of engaging students in their early teens, and the significance of competitions like the Thermo Fisher Junior Innovators Challenge to advance STEM education, access, and equity. Maya and Eleanor, thank you so much for joining. It's great to be together.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us. I'm super excited.
Same here. I think we're going to have a fun conversation today. I want to start with Maya. Maya, your leadership in STEM and education is vast. I mean, you're a renowned nonprofit leader, social entrepreneur, and educator, an award-winning children's book author. You're even an alum of one of the Society's national high school STEM competitions. In barely a decade, you've transformed Society for Science into a dynamic entrepreneurial organization. And today it's known for world-class competitions like the Thermo Fisher Scientific Junior Innovators Challenge, which started long before our sponsorship and currently reaches 65,000 students annually. Can you tell us a little bit about your path to Society for Science?
Well, Meron, thank you so much for having me today. So my path or journey, I'm the daughter of Indian immigrants. I grew up in Eastern North Carolina. My dad, a physics professor, my mother, an entrepreneur. And I was exposed to science very early. And I started doing scientific research in 6th, 7th grade. I read scientific publications, Science News, National Geographic. And I went on to a public high school called the North Carolina School of Science and Mathematics that got me really excited about science and math. And I did scientific research, and I entered one of the society's competitions, the Science Talent Search, as a senior in high school. I took a left turn out of college. I was going to go get an MD, PhD, but I ended up founding the Global Fund for Children based on a fellowship I got that let me travel from South and Southeast Asia. And it was there that I decided, after seeing local innovation taking place in communities throughout Asia, I said, I want to make sure that all children have the chance to be educated and have health care and are safe. And so I founded the Global Fund for Children when I was 22 years old. And I built that for 18 years. I left the Global Fund for Children, which is bigger and better than I left it today, but I was called to take on the leadership of the Society for Science. And I came in 2014. And the reason I was asked to come in is because I was an alum, because I knew science news, and because I had led and founded a nonprofit organization. And the trustee said, we want you to put your entrepreneurial chops onto this organization. It's almost 100 years old. It's dusty. What are you going to do? And the first thing I said is, we have to make sure that every young person in this country can become a scientist or engineer if that's what they want to be when they grow up. So we created a group of programs around building inclusion and access and equity for young people in the United States through several programs working with teachers and mentorship and scientific literacy.
That is fantastic. And what an incredible story that you yourself, right, are an alum of one of these competitions. And wonderful that we're joined by Eleanor, who, can claim the same. I actually had the privilege, Eleanor, of meeting you at last year's Middle School STEM Competition Awards ceremony. Just wow, you've achieved some tremendous accomplishments in the last few years. And I think everyone would love to hear more about that. But after winning the Society's Middle School STEM competition in 2016, you also went on to become an advocate for STEM education, specifically around introducing middle school girls to STEM. It sounds like your win has opened doors, for you to do some really innovative research. And we'd love to hear more about your career ambitions, your advocacy. Maybe you can share a little bit just to get us started on how your competition experience influenced both of those paths.
For sure. Thank you so much for having me. I'm honestly super humbled to be here and have this experience. Oh, goodness. I got to say, the Society's middle school competition was kind of the launch pad for all of my future endeavors. Growing up, I'm the middle of 5 kids, so I would often go around with my older siblings to introduce a girl to engineering day or full steam ahead events, which were these conferences trying to introduce girls into STEM. But I was always kind of watching and seeing this disconnect where they were professionals talking to children, but they didn't necessarily weren't able to see themselves in their shoes or in those types of roles. And so when I got to middle school, I was finally able to enter my first science fair. And I really, really, really wanted to make an impact. I had this dream of being the first person on Mars. And so if I could go for it, I was going to try it. And I never expected to get as far as I did, but getting to the Society for Science's competition, it was a really life-changing experience to be surrounded by that many people who believed in science and their ability to change the world, and finding that like-minded group of community was extremely important. It built my confidence. It was the first time that I had people listening and learning from me, and I realized I really can make a difference, and it taught me how to communicate with a wide range of audience. I had both younger children there who were with their parents or their siblings to come watch the show, or actual judges who were experts in the industry. And so learning how to kind of talk to all those audiences was very helpful. It reinforced the idea of all voices in the room, and something you said at the beginning of innovation really comes from diverse perspectives, and you really need to be able to hear everyone to think of those different perspectives and come up with new ways to innovate. And that's actually how I came up with my most recent research project, working with slosh in microgravity. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
For sure. So slosh is the unwanted movement of fluid in a tank. So if you take your water bottle and you shake it up, the motion of the water inside is slosh. And slosh has been plaguing NASA since the 1950s because it causes problems such as low fuel gauge accuracy. So it's difficult to tell how much fuel you have in your tank. It causes jitter, which is where the spacecraft shakes uncontrollably. And that makes it extremely difficult to conduct onboard experimentation. And so while there are current slosh mitigation subsystems, which means it kind of controls slosh, they're costly, they're complex, and honestly, they're inefficient. So one day I was just pacing around in my living room and I was thinking to myself, what is the difference between slosh on Earth and slosh in space? And I was like, oh, there's no gravity. And so it kind of, that simple realization, which is something that engineers are kind of trained to take for granted, was a really great way to kind of break past that barrier and think of it from a completely different perspective. And so I ended up using custom surface energies, which means it's extra strong or extra repulsive. So it either attracts the fluid or it pushes the fluid away. And so by using those custom surface energies, I'm able to control slosh.
That's
Thank you.
fantastic. And Maya, considering the vision you had when you came in to lead the Society for Science around access and equity, it must just be so rewarding to, see young scientists like Eleanor not just competing and winning, but advancing in their careers. I know you and I have certainly talked a lot about the importance of engaging students of all backgrounds in STEM, and specifically around that early teen age range. Can you tell us a little bit more about the sort of criticality of those early teen years? Why is it so important to expose students to STEM learning experiences?
So there's a lot of research that has been done middle school education, right? And the drop-off rates that is quite steep for girls and children of color in the middle school. They come in really excited about science, about math, about engineering. And then something happens in grade where you see a real drop. And so one of the things that we have to do at the Society for Science is really engage the middle school STEM population and really have excited teachers, role models like Eleanor. We need excellent content to get kids excited. So we at Science News have just started a middle school magazine called Science News Explores. And it is growing like gangbusters in this country because teachers told us, Science News is great, but I need content that's going to excite my middle school students, written for that age group. And so we did it. We listened to them and we did it. We have to do a better job of really engaging this next generation of young people that we need to grab them in different ways to get them excited about STEM. That means technology and STEM. It means art and technology, right? A lot of kids are using art with and technology, and that's a STEM field. And now looking at integrating that very forcefully into our work, because you get a whole new group of students coming in that you normally wouldn't have thought of in the sort of traditional aspects. A piece that I just want to say, and I'll end with this, that we need to think about STEM not in its traditional verticals, but we need to think about them horizontally, right? And
Yeah.
the other last piece I would say is what we see in our research and also the projects is that kids love doing science research and projects that have a direct effect on their lives or their communities. So if they see something that's been affected or they get excited about it, then they need to go after it. And I think that is something we're seeing across the board, frankly. Climate change being one of them, right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And isn't it interesting when you say that, it immediately brings me back to the point about diversity, right? Because depending on geographic diversity, for example, you may see different things in your community. And so by having STEM experts or researchers from all backgrounds and from all geographies, you're tackling problems in communities that you otherwise might not tackle if you didn't have that same diversity, right? Because
That's
they wouldn't be
correct.
as visible
That's correct.
to the scientists. I'm wondering, each of you may both have a view on this. I think it's some of what we've been talking about so far is primarily facilitated, through the school systems, for example.
Mm.
But there are a lot of ways, to your earlier point of, reaching students in different ways through different topics. There are also a lot of different venues
That's
or
right.
environments through which we can reach students. And so I'm wondering if you have some thoughts you can share with us on things like after school programs or enrichment organizations or extracurriculars, and whether or not you yourselves as alums maybe cultivated some skills through those venues or environments that allowed you to excel.
Take that, and please join in with me, please. For me personally, I was a Girl Scout, and Girl Scouts played a very big role in my life. What they didn't have then were badges around STEM. Now, Girl
Mm.
Scouts have a huge number of badges for STEM, from engineering, computer science, coding, you name it, it's there, which is great. The other one I would mention is the Boys and Girls Club. What a huge
Mm.
reach the Boys and Girls Club has. And sure has a wonderful partnership with the Boys and Girls Club. And so, you know, how do we work with the Boys and Girls Clubs to think about putting on science fairs at the Boys and Girls Clubs?
Mhm.
You know, Eleanor, you're shaking. You may have some other ideas of after school.
Oh goodness, yeah. I am a big believer in like project-based organizations and anything to do with hands-on learning. So I did a lot of robotics growing up. I also did a lot of like, I don't know, just kind of random things within my community at home and my friends, anything that really allowed me to get hands-on time with building and creating. So robotics was a really big one for me. I learned a lot about self-motivation because it was a chosen project. I feel like any sort of extracurricular where you can get students saying, this is my passion and this is something that I want to own and pursue is really where you're going to start to find that kind of captivation. You learn leadership skills, setting your own deadlines, which was kind of something that was a very soft skill that took me a long time to learn, as well as asking for help. In these types of after school clubs, whether it's just like a quilting club or Cyber Patriot or any of those things, the moment you have kind of built-in mentors, it makes it a lot easier to get past that barrier of thinking, oh, am I silly for asking this question? And it starts to really allow the students, I don't know, gain confidence in, hey, I don't know this yet, but I will. And once you have those built-in mentors, it becomes much easier to go out and search for your own. And I feel like having one gateway door kind of is like a domino effect that allows you to then access all these other skills. And I think you got to have it. It's really important.
That's an excellent point about the other leadership skills or soft skills, right, that are gained
Yes.
through STEM learning. I think a lot of the focus is on the technical skills, but there are incredible leadership skills, writing skills, right, adaptability, flexibility that really round out, I think, an individual and their development. Maya, did you have a comment?
Well, I was just going to say, one of the things we love about science research is about having to defend it and having to
Yeah.
communicate it well. And the first question I always ask is, I'm the person on the street. Tell me this like I don't know anything about science, but you got to explain it to me really simply, and I love doing that. I would also say something about mentorship. It's really important for for all young people to be able to see a mentor and see themselves. It's really key. And I think for a long time, young girls could not see women scientists that look like themselves. Young people of color could not see themselves. We need to do a better job to make sure that we're providing a diverse array of mentors to young people so they could say, if that person did it, so can I. And I think that's very, very important and I think quite inspiring, frankly.
I would love to piggyback off Maya if that's super quick. I think what Maya is talking about is also kind of this cycle. And I found myself falling into it too of I was really lucky to have my older sisters and sibling and like learn from them. And that's what inspired me of like, wow, I was very fortunate to have this. I want to make sure I can give that back. And so science isn't just about teaching the technical, but also teaching kind of the responsibility of paying it forward. And you have this opportunity and you really should be like working towards bringing other people in. And oftentimes STEM has a very sad connotation of being very competitive, but I feel like we need to break that down and talk more about like the inclusivity, because when you're sharing that knowledge is when the entire industry is going to move forward and everyone is going to benefit. And I feel like that's super important.
Incredibly, incredibly important. And, it's interesting. Our collaboration with the Society for Science has multiple sort of pillars of focus. And one of them is explicitly around diversity, equity, and inclusion. And one of the sort of strategies that we have used is to have our colleagues who are members of what we call community action councils, for example. They really drive our community engagement in local communities, or colleagues who are part of our business resource groups who may share certain characteristics around race, around family background, et cetera, and allowing those colleagues to really be a part of representing Thermo Fisher at the Society for Science's affiliate fairs. And
Mm-hmm.
part of why we do that is to provide those representation, those visual, nonverbal, right, sort of touch points between the students and the colleagues that work for Thermo Fisher Scientific, the fact that they are from all different backgrounds, that they're active in the community, that they do want to give back and they do want to engage with students. And that is a critical part of how we are sort of embarking on this journey with the Society for Science. It's something that we've gotten incredible feedback on, both from the affiliate fairs and sort of the science fair directors, as well as our own colleagues who've been able to be a part of going out into the community and engaging with students at these fairs. And so any opportunity we have, I think, to strengthen active mentorship bonds, or just that sort of representation, those visual cues, those cues that this is a space for you, is so important, and so important for us to achieve our vision for what the future STEM workforce looks like.
I agree.
So, Eleanor, I know we still have a long way to go to achieve equity in STEM education, of course. And, as an advocate, as you are mentoring students or kind of doing outreach, what advice do you give to a student who's curious about entering a local science or engineering fair, for example? Maybe they're unsure of where to start. Maybe they, want some advice on what it really takes to succeed.
I love this question. I think I got to start with the number one piece of advice that was given to me. And I know it sounds like a cliche, but it is so true, and I cannot express it enough. Do what you love, and everything else will fall into place. It will never feel like real work because you're passionate and excited about what you're doing. And it's from that true passion where you actually unlock the ability to communicate much more effectively. I feel like too oftentimes I see people going into science fair trying to chase what they think the judges will like or what they think is the next big thing. But in reality, it's much like what Maya said of what do you see in your community going on? Even if it's something like fixing a simple everyday life little issue, like, I don't know, my mom has to haul out the big trash bag, and so is there a way I can make it smaller? Or the dishwasher is broken. Why did it break? What's going on there? It doesn't have to be anything big. If it makes you excited, then I promise you there are other people who are going to be excited about it. And then just go for it after that and be scrappy. I recently learned that term from a friend, and it's one of my favorite terms because it is the idea of being able to innovate or create something when everything else kind of seems to be going wrong. I personally think it's a little bit better than saying to be brave because it insinuates a belief in yourself to figure out your way out of a situation. And it kind of normalizes being afraid. Even I get scared sometimes, and I have that belief in myself that regardless of whatever's going on, there's going to be a way through it. And just because I'm nervous now or uncomfortable, that doesn't mean that change is bad. It means it's really just a growth and an opportunity point. And so be scrappy, ask lots of questions. Sometimes you learn more from failure, even though it's uncomfortable. And just remember, it really goes back to do what you love. Science and STEM is not just for prodigies and professionals. You don't have to know everything to make a difference, and your interests matter.
I would just say everything Eleanor said. I would also just really want to focus on just do what you love doing.
Mm-hmm.
Pick a problem and think about how you want to solve it. The second is always think about that. Don't be afraid if an experiment doesn't work. It actually gives you an answer when it doesn't work. So don't be afraid of failure, okay? Experiments are not supposed to work. Sometimes they do, but many times they don't. And because they don't, you're actually learning something new because it provides you data to take maybe the left turn or the right turn. And then the third thing is really, if you can, seek out that teacher in your school who cares about science and cares about students and latch on to them and saying, I want to do this. Can you help me do it? Okay. And also through your after school clubs or Girl Scouts or Boys and Girls Clubs or whichever those outlets are, look for that role model out there.
What Maya was saying about the mentors is once you have those connections, don't forget to say thank you. A little bit of a thank you will go a really long way, and to let them know that they're appreciated, because it's kind of, once again, building that like cyclical like idea of help. And I don't know, it's just really important. These people do a lot for you, and you're eventually going to be doing the same. And I don't know, I think it's really cool to be able to give that back and just let someone know they're appreciated. So.
This is such incredibly inspiring advice. I'm inspired by the advice you gave, and I'm not even a student who is thinking about embarking on this path, but just what an incredible conversation today. Thank you both so much for your time. You're doing essential work to promote and advance equity in STEM education. On behalf of Thermo Fisher and myself, we just really admire your commitment to this topic and to exploring new frontiers, both literally and figuratively, especially in Eleanor's case, new frontiers through STEM, and are really thankful for the partnership and very excited about this year's first Thermo Fisher Scientific Junior Innovators Challenge.
Well, I want to just say thank you to you, Meron. Thank you, Eleanor. Thank you to Thermo Fisher. We are so excited to put on the inaugural Thermo Fisher Junior Innovators Challenge. It's going to be so much fun. It's going to be great.
I want to say thank you to you guys for the work that you're doing to involve kids in STEM. I know I can 100% say with certainty it changed my life, and it's the reason I'm sitting here today. So thank you so much. You guys are doing amazing work, and I'm incredibly grateful.
You guys are awesome. Okay. To learn more about the Society for Science and their publication Science News, visit societyforscience.org. For educators, families, and students interested in exploring the Thermo Fisher Junior Innovators Challenge and pathways to apply or affiliate your local STEM fair, visit societyforscience.org/JIC. Finally, follow Society for Science on social media for news on the top 300 junior innovators, top 30 finalists, and the grand prize winners of the inaugural Thermo Fisher Scientific Junior Innovators Challenge in Washington, D.C. this October. Thanks again to Maya and Eleanor for joining us today. And thanks to our listeners for tuning in. We hope you learned something new and that you're inspired to advance STEM education access and equity in your local community. The future of our society depends on it. Until next time, this is Science with a Twist.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Science with a Twist. This show is brought to you by Thermo Fisher Scientific, the world leader in serving science. If you enjoyed this episode, then follow Science with a Twist wherever you get your favorite podcasts.